Hi guys, it's Aoife from Words of Clover and I'm here to do another Irish themed video for you today. So a few weeks ago, one of my favourite Irish booktubers, Lisa over at Lisa in Bookland, did a really interesting video where she talked about bookish situations that she would like to be in, and she just talked about some of her favourite books and some of the different types of scenarios or kind of general kind of maybe time periods or different things happening in some of the books that she really loved and why she would like to maybe be in that situation or be in that book or be talking to particular characters. And I really liked this idea, so I have come up with a few of my own bookish situations that I would like to be in for a variety of reasons, and I've chosen a bunch of Irish books for this. Yeah, I will leave Lisa's video down below. I would really recommend you check both the video out and her channel out, as I genuinely just love her channel so much. So the first one I want to talk about is The Making of Mollie by Carey. This is actually a kind of, I guess you'd call it a middle grade novel. It's kind of aimed at children maybe aged 10 to 12, 13, kind of early teens, kind of late childhood years, I guess, coming into your tween years, I guess, as well. And we're following a little girl called Mollie. It's the early 1900s. It's gone out of my mind now, but it's early 1900s in Dublin, and she kind of lives in a very well-to-do family. She's going to a good school, and you know, she has a nice like friend group, but then she starts learning about the women's suffragette movement, and she starts figuring out that this is something that she's really interested in, and she starts seeing the different ways that she is treated versus her brother and her brother's friends are treated, and in terms of their future, how limited the things that she can do is in comparison to her male peers and her male relatives. And this starts making her angry, and she starts kind of investigating this the women's suffragette movement in Ireland, which wasn't as, I guess, as big or as explosive as the suffragette movement in England, but there were still a lot of like really key players and some really historical moments, such as the smashing of the windows in Dublin Castle. I think it was it Anna Sheehy Skeffington did that? I can't remember, but there were some historical moments in Irish history around the Irish suffragette movement. So obviously I would love to be in the situation of, you know, maybe being one of Mollie's friends, or following Mollie along in her adventures, kind of learning about that suffragette movement. I love that time, like period of history. I would love to be in Ireland. Sometimes I would love to go back in time and just experience a few weeks of Ireland at that time. It was a very tumultuous time, but it was such a turning point in Irish history. I would love to experience it. And in this particular book, I would love to experience that, the Irish suffragette movement. I think it would be, yeah, a really pivotal time to witness and to be alive, and yeah, I think it would be really interesting and definitely something that would spark a lot of my own interests. So yeah, I would definitely love to be a part of Mollie and go to the marches with Mollie while she got herself into a lot of trouble, but ultimately became a little feminist and a little suffragette. The next book I want to talk about is Queen of Coin and Whispers by Helen Corcoran, and this book is a fantasy book where you're following a young girl as she, her I think it was her uncle dies, and she becomes the next queen, and she has to kind of learn how to rule this land that she doesn't really know that well yet. Brings a new spy master into the fold called Xania. Xania and Leah gradually kind of fall in love along the course of this book, while there's a lot of like political intrigue and different things happening, while Leah kind of figures out how to run her court and how to rule her country in the best way that she knows how, and in a way that makes the future of the country and its people better than it was while her uncle reigned. One of the reasons why I would like to be in this bookish situation is because the fashion in this is like kind of like a vain bookish situation, by the way, but the fashion in this book is just incredible. I would highly recommend, if anyone has read this book, I'd highly recommend you follow Helen Corcoran on Twitter, because she sometimes like will tweet pictures out of some of the dresses and some of the things that she's seen like on Pinterest or somewhere else that have been kind of inspirations behind some of the costumes or the gowns that she describes in this book. Or she might sometimes say like, this is exactly something that Leah would wear or Xania would wear, or something like that. And yeah, just some of the descriptions of these like fantastical, beautiful gowns, yeah, definitely just spark all those different things in me from when I was younger and dreamed of being a princess. And yeah, sometimes I would like to live in a fantasy world, simply because I feel like sometimes the fashion is so much more gorgeous than the fashion is today. Live in a castle and wear pretty dresses, there's a part of me that would just like to do that. The next book I want to talk about is Big Girl, Small Town by Gallen. This is Gallen's first book. She since has had another book out called Factory Girls, and this is set in Northern Ireland. And in Big Girl, Small Town, we are following a character who is kind of just trying to go about her life. Her father died years earlier in something that may or may not have involved the IRA or the Troubles at the time, and now she's just working in a chipper. She's looking after her mum, and then she's just, you know, going day by day with her life, doesn't really know yet what she wants to do. She's dealing with the recent death of her grandmother as well, and we're just following her on her journey like in her life, just living her ordinary life. And one of the things I want to talk about in this book, one of the reasons I would like to just be thrown into this book at one point, is simply because this book really made me crave a chipper. And I don't know if like I don't know if there's a particular Irish thing, like an Irish chipper, but Irish chips are just so good from a chipper. They're just like salt and vinegary, and they're kind of mushy, and they're gorgeous, and you put them on a piece of white bread with butter and ketchup and have a chip sandwich, and it is just the nicest thing in the world. I don't have it like a lot, but when I do have it, I really enjoy it. And yeah, it's just definitely just a huge comfort food for me. I always love that scene in Dairy Girls where they're trying to figure out how many chips to have for a certain amount of people, and they end up just getting loads and loads of chips. And that is genuinely something that does happen in my house sometimes, of how many chips should we order for a certain amount of people, and you normally always order too much, but they're always eaten. They're always eaten. The next book I'm going to talk about is 32 Words for Fields by Manchán Magan. My brother still has this one, so I'm going to I'm just going to hold up Manchán Magan's latest release, which is Listen to the Land Speak, but they kind of both work for this book, because I really kind of want to talk with the author when I'm talking about this bookish situation. And this is actually a non-fiction book. And when I'm talking about this book in terms of the bookish situation I would like to be in, it's actually, I would just love to have Manchán Magan's, I guess, how clever he is and how knowledgeable he is, and also just his grasp on the Irish language, which I think is so beautiful, and so and the way he talks about it and the way he educates people about the Irish language is in such an accessible, lovely, often humorous way that makes people actually interested in learning it and more interested in the language, in the culture. So yeah, I really appreciate all of that. So yeah, I definitely would love to live in the bookish situation of Manchán Magan's head and be completely fluent in Irish. Another book I'm going to talk about is The Glorious Guinness Girls by Emily Hourican. This is the sequel, so this is a hint of scandal, but The Glorious Guinness Girls and The Guinness Girls kind of both work for this as well, similar to when I my previous pick. So for this one, I'm just talking about like the time period, the 20s, like the roaring 20s. Now this does take place in both Dublin and London. So The Glorious Guinness Girls kind of starts off in Dublin, where we're following a young girl who kind of grew up with being kind of the companion of the Guinness girls, of Arthur Guinness's daughters, who kind of became socialites in London during the 20s. They were kind of like, I guess, some of the first influencers out there. Like papers used to have little articles of like what parties they went to, who they were talking to, what they were wearing, things like that, and people would copy what they were doing. And they were very influential at the time for a particular, I guess, generation of people and a particular class of people as well. I think just to live during this time in the 20s in London would have been really just a really spectacular time to experience, like that moment of debauchery and not having to think too much. I guess it was like people were still letting loose after the First World War, had a lot of things just to let loose and to have fun and to live their life after a few years of, you know, really kind of terrible times during the First World War. So yeah, I think the drinks, the dresses, the fashion, the parties, all of that would be a really fun bookish situation to be in for a little while. And then if we're going to stick with the time period of the 20s, another book I want to talk about, which kind of throws back to the first book I talked about, The Making of Mollie, is A Great Beauty, which I read last year for the Irish Readathon and was one of my favourite books I read during the year. I really enjoyed this book. And this book actually is actually looking at the later life of Michael Collins, who was a revolutionary Irish hero. He was one of the big players in the Irish War of Independence, and he was also in one of the main players of the Irish Civil War as well, before he was killed in 1922 by people only a couple of years earlier he had fought alongside. And people always say that it was such, you know, like it was a really big shame that he died so young when he did, because we have no idea what Ireland could have looked like if he had lived and he maybe had become a really key player in our government, and could have made some big changes. So yeah, I generally, as you can probably tell, I would be definitely more of a Michael Collins person than an Eamon de Valera person. And I think depending on who you talk to in Ireland, people generally fall on one of those two lines. So yeah, I am definitely a little bit of a Michael Collins fangirl, even more so after reading this book. And in terms of a great beauty and the bookish situation I would like to be in, I would have loved to have just, as I said, I would love to sometimes just go back in time and experience Ireland at this point. I know, yes, it was in Ireland at war, but again, it was in Ireland at such a pivotal time in history. Things were changing. We had these great men and women who were fighting for Irish freedom in such amazing ways and showing such feats of bravery that I would definitely have loved to experience it, to have witnessed it. I just love to, live a little while in the 20s in Ireland, be part of Cumann na bPan, fight for Irish freedom, be part of, like, be a little spy. I don't know, like, yes, it's a very romanticized version. As I said, we're in Bookland where everything is safe and nothing bad happens to people. So yeah, it's a very romanticized version of Ireland. I am very, very aware, but listen, this is my game and I can play it the way I want to. Then the second last books I want to talk about, Best Friends and Best Friends Forever, and then the Connemara Stallion, which are both children's books that I read by Irish authors, and they're both like horsey books and basically just about little girls who get their own horse and have these bonds with their horses. And obviously I'm going into this because I'm a horse girl, and one of my dreams when I was younger would have been to own my own horse, and especially Best Friends by Pauline Devine, where this little girl, her granddad buys her this little filly, and the two of them kind of bond together and learn how to ride and show jump and do everything together, and it's just like the cutest little book, and I really, really loved it. And yeah, I always kind of wanted that situation. I would have loved to have had like a little field beside my house that I could have had my own pony, and yeah, we just grew up together, and yeah, that would have been so cute. So yeah, I would definitely love to be in a bookish situation where I could just own my own horse and live my horsey dream girl life, which unfortunately never happened, but I can dream. The last book I want to talk about is In Other Lands by Sarah Rees Brennan. In this book we are following a young boy called Elliot who, when he's in, I think he's in his like 12 or 13, he sees this like door in the woods, and he ends up realizing that he is able to access this like other kind of fantastical side of the world, and he's able to go to this like kind of magical training school in the woods where he can learn to learn either to be, I think it's like a not a bard, a kind of be more like the government, like side, and like the writing side, like a scribe, or he can be a warrior. And I've chosen this bookish situation literally because I would like to go to a magic school and be friends with elves and kiss a mermaid, like Elliot does, and it just sounds like a lot of fun. Now yes, I wouldn't want to be like fighting against giants and ogres and harpies like they tend to do in this book, but kissing the mermaid I don't really mind. Not being drowned by one, but kissing one might be okay. So yeah, and the elves in this are like these feminist badass warriors who think men are weak little things and can't do anything, and it's just so funny because it's like this real reversal of like our very patriarchal world. It's a very matriarchal world, and it is so funny, and I absolutely love it to bits. This book is just brilliant. It made me laugh so much, and yeah, I would definitely love to be in some of the situations in this book because they were just a lot of fun. That is it for this video. I had a lot of fun kind of talking about these and coming up with them. If you guys would like to do something similar, please make sure to check out Lisa's video and give her any credit if you want to do it, because obviously this is not my idea, it is Lisa's. So thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I'll see you guys again next time.